Hello everybody and welcome to Pravus Gaming. We're back with more Hearts of Iron 4 to take a look at a new expansion being released, La Résistance. This is an expansion that focuses a lot on espionage. You can build an intelligence agency and train secret agents to spy on your opponents, collect intelligence, and sabotage them through various different operations. Encryption and decryption have been completely reworked, you can now crack codes, and of course, the resistance to occupation mechanic has been completely overhauled. This on top of 3 new national focus trees for France, Spain, and Portugal, which look very intensive and very well crafted. I'm extremely excited to get into this today, and a big thank you to Paradox Interactive for sponsoring today's video and getting me early access to this expansion so I can show it off to you. And for those of you wondering, it is releasing on February 25th, so you don't have very long to wait. Let's start up a new game. Oh boy, I am very excited about this. We're going to be playing in 1936, of course, and I will be playing as the nation of France, because, I mean, it's La Résistance. I feel like I have to. France, believe it or not, is probably harder than ever before, but it has the potential to become incredibly powerful in the late game if it can survive against the Axis onslaught. And in this expansion, there are more ways to do so than ever before. I will be playing an Iron Man today because I would like to get some achievements if possible, but I will be fully honest with you. All of my practice games have resulted in horrible death for France. So I'm hoping my luck gets a little bit better, and if I lose, I lose. But at least we can have a little bit of fun, and I don't believe in playing with a handicap. This is how you get better at the game, gosh dang it. Alright, so let's see. France started with a whole bunch of different national spirits at the beginning of the game that made it really weak in the past expansions. Now they are even worse. Let's take a look at them. So we have Victors of the Great War, which I believe existed before. Recruitable population goes down, war support goes down, and land doctrines take a lot longer to research. That is tough. Then we have Disjointed Government. Daily political power cost plus 0.8, which is a little bit confusing because it's actually it's a cost, which means you're gaining minus 0.08. The result is I have very little political power, okay? We have an extremely bad government right now, and we need to fix this ASAP. Not to mention that it reduces our stability and our surrender limit, which means if the Germans just waltz into Paris, we immediately die. Protected by the Maginot Line, not a big deal, just a little bit different. We have full employment. I believe this is new. So in the aftermath of World War I, so many French soldiers died that when the men returned home, there were more jobs than people to fill them. As a result, they did have full employment, yes, but not a lot of people available to conscript into the military. So this is going to penalize our potential manpower pool a lot, and we need to get rid of it as soon as we can. Political violence is new, so we'll get little pop-ups occasionally. We'll have the communists and the far-right extremists fight each other in the streets. That's gonna suck. And we have an inefficient economy, which reduces my factory and dockyard output by 20%, which really penalizes France. I believe we were given a few more factories in La Résistance to try and make up for it a little bit, but if we don't get rid of this, we're not going to be producing much at all. That said, though, if we want to strengthen our economy and build up our military, there are more ways to go about it than ever before. Let's take a look at the national focus tree. So you can see here, it's rather large. Here's a new feature. We can zoom out. Yes, look at that. So much more content as France. And look at these little buttons right here. You can click on these, and it actually highlights the things that affect, let's say, your political focuses, or your research focus, or industry, or manpower. Really helpful if you're looking for a specific thing, like I want to build more factories. Where's a good national focus to focus on? There they are. They're all over here, or over here, etc., etc. Really cool. I love that a lot. Alright, so right off the bat, as France, we're going to have to make some decisions. Do we want to go for a left-leaning government or a right-leaning government? If we go down the left-leaning path, we can choose to become either communist or stay democratic. Communist was always a thing as France. It was a very viable way of playing the game, and it's actually been fleshed out a fair bit more. Eventually, we can decide whether we want to kind of go our own direction or perhaps follow the orders of Moscow and Comintern. Pretty fun, but I'm not going to be going for that today. We also could stay democratic, which has become far more involved than ever before. I actually think that democratic might be more powerful than it's ever been as well. But you can do fun little things like join up the Entente or perhaps strengthen up your own little Entente. Maybe you decide you want to join up with the Allies, but you'd rather lead the Allies instead, and then make concessions to Italy and get them to join in another faction called the Stresa Front, which is Italy, Britain, and France, and you become a naval powerhouse that can rival Germany very easily. A lot of cool things you can do as democratic, and I think they're actually very powerful now in the game. But, of course, you still have to survive against the Germans. If you want to survive against the Germans, there are a couple different things you could do. Perhaps you want to form Vichy France and go fascist. And if that's the case, there are other fun things you can do, like perhaps get Portugal to join your own faction, maybe Spain as well, or maybe get Greece involved and form kind of a Mediterranean alliance instead. That could be kind of fun. Or you want to become a monarchist. And this is the route we're going to take today because of course we are. If you go down the monarchist non-aligned route, you actually have 3 different choices for who to put on the throne. You can have the Duke of Orleans, you can have Alphonse I, who I don't really know anything about, and there's not a lot of options, but it could be kind of fun. I think it's a way of uniting the crowns of France and Spain together, as long as the Carlists win the Spanish Civil War. Or you can reform a 3rd French Empire and put a Bonaparte on the throne. Napoleon VI becomes the Emperor of France. And then you get a lot of massive war goals against huge players in the world. This is the conquest route, and this is what we're going to do today because, of course, I'm going to be putting a Bonaparte on the throne. There's a lot more that I want to show you in the National Focus Tree, but for now, let's just go ahead and play the game a little bit. I am going to be going for our standard openings as far as our research. Let's go for production, construction, and some research speed. All of those quite good. Civilian factories, we need a lot of civilian factories if I want to build up my economy. So I'm going to go ahead and stack up several civilian factories and build these as quickly as we can. Try to start really ramping up our economy. But it's often the case that I build too many of these, and then all of a sudden I don't have enough military factories. So we got to be very careful about this. Speaking of military factories, let's go over here. I'm going to need a lot more infantry equipment, some more support equipment, and more towed artillery. I don't think I can really justify building any more light tanks. Motorized is okay. I guess I'll leave it, but I don't really care that much about it. Actually, do I want to leave it? No, we're going to go ahead and get rid of you. I don't think we need to worry about that at all. Let's go ahead and move all of our navies together. I want to get them all put together like so. Grab everybody, bring them into one place so I can spread them out myself later. All of you go here. Let's grab our armies. We start off with a fairly large army in the game, 53 troops. In France proper. Not all of them are very strong, but they're okay. We'll go ahead and set up here in the Maginot Line, some here along Italy, and of course some along the border of Belgium. I'll split them all up a little bit later. We also have quite a few troops that are spread out across our colonies, and they're okay. However, they're taking up precious manpower and precious equipment, so I think we're just going to go ahead and delete them. I know, crazy, right? Why weaken yourself? Because I'd rather train up better units later, and to be honest, I'm probably never going to have the bandwidth to fight over Asia or over Africa. It's just not going to end up being a thing. I'm about positive. So let's delete all of this for now. We can spread them out later if needed. Okay, so all of our troops are going to be deploying over here. No problem at all. Let's go to speed 5. And then, let's see. So, is there anything else you need to worry about right now? No. For now, we just sit back and wait for a little bit. Get our fleets together, we'll reorganize as much as we need to, start reviving the national bloc and gain more political power and trade deal opinion factor when Pierre Laval becomes our leader instead of Edouard Daladier, I think is how you say that. I'm not too sure. So one of the first things that I want to do is go down the political focus tree, utilize the leagues, and then the Council of Rambouillet, I think, which will give us more non-aligned popularity, and then revise the Constitution. This will start giving me some very much needed stability for 1 year. We cannot, however, go for repeal the law of exile until revising the Constitution has been used up. So that's 1 full year after we get this focus that I cannot continue down the monarchist path. This is a ticking timer, I guess. And once it's done, then I'll want to go down the Third Empire route. So the sooner we get this and build up some more stability, the better. The sooner we'll be able to get rid of our disjointed government and start fixing our political situation and get more power. In the meantime, though, while we're waiting, we can focus on some economic development. Now, this is an interesting change. So the focus tree here actually requires you to spend a lot of time investing either in metropolitan France or in all of your colonies, and depending on how much you invest will determine what kind of rewards you get when you get down to the end of this tree. So for example, if we devalue the franc, then develop the metropole, and then invest in metropolitan France and Algerian France, we will add in building slots. This takes 70 days for each of these, so it's not particularly impactful right off the bat. Building slots don't matter. But then you go to industrial expansion, and we get 2 new civilian factories for each of the states that we have invested in. So that would be 4 civilian factories if we did metropolitan France and then moved on to industrial expansion, or 8 civilian factories if we did both of these and then picked up the industrial expansion. That's interesting. Same exact concept if you invest in West Africa, Indochina, and Syria. We could get only 4 civilian factories, or we could get up to 12, depending on how much time and effort we are willing to spend investing. So it's one of those things where, do you want to go for the long-term payoff or the short-term payoff? And I don't really know which one's going to be best. I'm very curious to see where the meta is going to shape up for France in this game. Let's go ahead and assign an admiral real quick. I'll move things around later when we actually are looking closer to a war. We should go ahead and split some of you guys up. So let's see. I want to make sure that the mountaineers primarily are going to be over here along the borders of Italy, because we do have some mountains here. Actually, we should go ahead and just assign them to a new army. That would be even better. Yeah, let's do that. Hang on. Let's go ahead and delete you. Let's go ahead and set up a new front line. I could just split these guys in half real quick, but I want to make sure we are using the right units. So let's see. That's all of our mountaineers, I think. So we'll just go ahead and grab a bunch of infantry. Ideally, I don't think that I want to have any of these colonial brigades. Actually, you know something I could do that's really bold? You want to know something I could do that's really, really bold? All right, watch this. Watch what we're going to do here. I am going to disband almost my entire army. I'm not kidding. That's exactly what I'm going to do. We are going to disband everything except for 1 division. I know. It's crazy, isn't it? But here's what we're going to do. We're going to train this 1 division, and he's going to get me an absolute ton of army experience per day. 0.93, sorry. Which is almost the effect of me training all 50-some of those troops, but it's costing me almost nothing in terms of infantry equipment. So this is a sneaky trick you can do if you know you're not going to be attacked anytime soon. You can just go ahead and start building up that army experience. You can change up your templates early in the game, and it is significantly better than getting the military theorist for basically no cost. Now, it comes with the risk where I need to train up a lot of troops and time that very carefully, but if we can, hey, cool, absolutely no problem. All right, so while all of this is going on, let's talk about some other new changes. So Spain got a new national focus tree as well, and this one is really massive. Now, granted, you'll probably only be going down one of these major branches at a time in a game. A lot of this revolves around the Spanish Civil War and who is going to win. Are you going to see the nationalists win? The Republicans? Are they going to have anarchists? Or perhaps you're going to see the Carlists rise to power. It can literally turn into a 4-way civil war in Spain now, and the mechanics for the Spanish Civil War have been completely reworked as well. It's way more interesting than before, and I would love to show it to you guys sometime, but maybe in a future series. Portugal has also been completely reworked, and it's not quite as big as France, but it's still pretty impactful. Fun things can happen with Portugal. You can go, for example, reclaim Brazil as part of the Portuguese Empire and bring them directly under your control. You can also go ahead and go for, I think it's the 5th Empire? Where is it called? Kingdom Inherited. There's a thing here somewhere. I don't remember where it is. There's the Empire of Brazil. But yeah, proudly alone, maybe that's it. There are things you can do, basically. Oh, there it is, the 5th Empire. To become a really, really powerful empire, non-core manpower, division, attrition, war support, weekly support, justified time, cool stuff, but everyone in the world hates you. Like, there's cool stuff to do with Portugal nowadays. They would also make for a very, very fun run. But, of course, we're worried about France. We're trying to put Bonaparte back on the throne. So that is exactly what we're going to do. Notice, by the way, it's very early in the game, and I'm already up to 3 army experience. I'm going to have a chance to change up my templates pretty substantially, and I'm very thrilled about that. Now, once we've revived the national bloc, that's when we're going to see that Germany wants to remilitarize the Rhineland. Now, I have tried many times to deny them remilitarizing the Rhineland and try to win a war against them on my own. I have tried to do so, and I have failed repeatedly. They're too strong. I know this is something you used to be able to do, and there's a sense to it, right? We're going to go ahead and issue a diplomatic objection. There's a sense to it because Germany starts with such a strong industrial base that they will easily outpace you as France. There's just no way around it. So one of the only things you can do is try to attack them early while you have the advantage of a lot of troops. But the problem is our troops are so weak, and we have so little starting equipment, and attacking Germany starts a civil war with the communists. So France is extremely weak. It can be done. I have no doubt that it can be done. I am not the one to do it. We're going to be playing a more basic, regular game and try not to be too gamey. All right? Now let's utilize the leagues. This doesn't do a whole lot for us right off the bat. but it is going to unlock a couple of decisions where I could spend my base stability to improve the popularity of fascism or non-aligned. If we were going down the Vichy France route, I think we have to do that several times because fascist support is basically non-existent at the beginning of the game as France. So if you want to go down Vichy France, you'll have to use those events and sack your stability quite a bit. I am trying not to do that. Okay? Stability is very, very important to me. It impacts my political power gain. It impacts my factory output. These are all important. Also, we get additional resistance in occupied territories, which is a beautiful segue into a whole new feature of the game. Let's talk about occupied territories. So previously in the game, when you attacked a nation and took a bunch of their territory, if the war did not end, you would get resistance to occupation. And that resistance, depending on how strong it would be, could sabotage your infrastructure or your factories, etc., and you'd have to spend a bunch of different units garrisoning, right? That is no longer the case. Now you get this occupied territory screen here, and you can see that there is a lot of various different territories that we hold that technically belong to other nations. And each one of them has the potential to start building up on their resistance or become compliant to our government. So let's take the case of Algeria right here. Right now, they are at 0% resistance. They are not fighting me in any way. We also have 70% compliance with their nation. Their people are mostly following our rule and not causing any trouble. The more compliance you have, the more bonuses you get. So for example, at 13%, we get informants, which increases the chance that we detect enemy operatives that are trying to rally up the rebellion. Or we can get a local police force at 23%, which reduces the required number of garrisons, I'll talk about that in a second, and give you some recruitable population so you can get more manpower. Then there's reorganizing the workforce, so you get some local resources and factories. Then there's the volunteer program, which gives you even more recruitable population. And finally, eventually, a new regime, which can turn them into a collaboration government. I have never worked with this, I don't know what it does, but it sounds pretty darn cool. Compliance tends to build up over time. However, we can speed it along depending on how we want to treat our occupied territory. So let's take a look at this. Territory management. Lots of options here. We can have no garrison. And if there's no garrison at all, then you just get a lot of resistance, and no one is compliant at all. The advantage is you don't have to spend any manpower or equipment garrisoning. So, no, we're not going to do that. We could go for local autonomy here. Damage to garrisons minus 25%, required garrisons minus 60%, and we get some compliance every day by 0.02%. I'm fine with that. Let's go ahead and click this, and it changes all of our occupied territory to local autonomy. If I wanted to click on this one at a time, we could say just Algeria, for example, has a secret police, etc., etc. But I'm going to stick with local autonomy here. That's fine. Now, as we are building up compliance, that's good. It reduces our rebellion, but also reduces the number of troops we need to garrison. Now, garrisons are not something you need to train like before. We don't need to train huge armies of cavalry and just place them all over the nation to reduce occupation. In fact, garrisoning for occupation is not even a thing anymore. You can see that that is gone, all right? So instead, you automatically spend your manpower and some infantry equipment or whatever else it needs in order to put down the resistance. So right here, for example, we need 0.49 divisions of Brigade Coloniale in order to protect against this level of resistance, which is 0%. It is currently costing me 499 equipment and almost 5,000 manpower just to keep a totally compliant Algeria under control. You can change what kind of template of garrison you are using, either individually here or right here. So for example, if I want to switch over to just cavalry, we can do that. Now, it would cost me additional manpower and equipment to do so, but we could. I'm going to leave it as it is for the moment. This becomes important because maybe you want to have a simple, cheap cavalry unit garrisoning mostly compliant states. But for the ones that you just conquered that are super resistant and have, like, let's say 40 or 50% resistance, maybe you want to create something with the new armored cars. That's a new thing you can build in the game right down here. Armored cars. These are basically super suppressive units with armor that do not lose much to resistance at all. So they're very effective, but also very expensive as garrisons. Lots of cool stuff, guys, I'm telling you. And I'm barely scratching the surface. I know that you guys want me to continue playing the game, so let's just do that for now. But I'm telling you, lots and lots to look at. And we haven't even started looking at the intelligence agency. If we want to spend 5 civilian factories for 30 days, we can create an agency. I'm not going to do that right now, because we really need our civilian factories in order to start building up any meaningful amount of economy in the game. But that is something we will do at some point, and train up some secret agents and try to get intelligence on Germany. Maybe crack their code and use that to our advantage. I'm not too sure. We'll have to give it a shot. Have I not? I have not set you guys all to fleets. Let's go ahead and do that now, just so you guys automatically deploy, and I don't have to think about it, because I don't like to think about anything. We probably will not need some of these late, or down at the very bottom, some pretty bad submarines that are a very old model, so we'll go ahead and get rid of those, I think. You get out of here, you get out of here, you get out, and you get out. Then we'll set up, let's say, some convoys over here, and we'll figure out the rest a little bit later. Okay, so that's going to be fine. Perfect. Moving on, moving on. We're up to 900,000 manpower now because we disbanded so much. So that gives me some raw idea as far as how many troops I'll be able to field eventually. We are almost up to 10 army experience now, by the way. Let's go ahead and change you to be a 20 combat width division. Okay. I'm also going to change your icon just so we don't mess this up in the future. Let's see. Communists in the government. So if we have communists going on here, and we have political violence and stuff, sometimes we get little pop-ups. So the communist movement in France, fueled by broad dissatisfaction among the working class and the radical trends amongst academies, has grown large enough to lead the formation of several parties. I believe historically, the democratic parties did allow the communists to have, like, some say in government, but they never actually got to, like, hold office or anything, I believe. So we could allow the popularity of communism to jump, or we could sack some stability and get more democracy. I'm going to let communism jump, because I have a way of getting rid of communism, and that's called a nationwide ban. We do have that as an option right over here, banned communism. It does lose a lot of stability depending on how many communists you have in the country already, so it can hurt. It can hurt a lot. Ideally, you don't get those pop-ups. But, worst come to worst, eventually it is going to reduce daily communism support, so it just goes away. So then you're left with just democratic and non-aligned, which is ultimately what we are going to want, eventually. So I will do that, but I just hate to lose that much stability. All right, so we're about to finish utilizing the leagues. I know I'm 20 minutes in and we've barely done anything, but I mean, there's a lot to cover here, dang it. It's a big expansion. Let's go for the Council of Rambouillet, which is going to increase the popularity of non-aligned, eating into the democratic, and also the communist support a little bit, which is going to make the banning of communism not hurt quite as much. The less support they have, honestly, the better. We do need to go to these divisions and make sure that we are tossing on additional things like engineers and also potentially some recon companies, which is kind of interesting here. You can have different forms of recon companies. Do you want them to be motorized, armored, light armored? I don't know. It's up to you. I mean, this is just an infantry division, so I don't see the reason to spend the motorized or the tanks on it, but I mean, that's a thing we technically could do. In fact, I think it even gives them armor value, which is hilarious. Wait, does it actually give them armor value? Hang on. Okay, so they start with 4.4 piercing. I'm curious, if I added in, let's say, armored recon, we would have 5.3 armor. Is this a way to actually give you enough armor that by default at the beginning of the game, the Germans will not be able to do max damage to you? I mean, they'll obviously get piercing eventually, but whoa, there's a thought. Huh. Now, I don't have a ton of light tanks as France at the beginning of the game. We only have like 1.2 thousand, which sounds like a lot. But it's not. You'll eat through them very, very quickly if you try doing this, so I'm not going to, but still, that's really interesting, isn't it? Huh. The possibilities are almost endless. Anyway, so yeah, let's go ahead and get the Council of Rambouillet. Then we're going to go down the revising of the Constitution, get some of that stability building up, and also ticking down that one-year timer so we will eventually be able to get rid of the disjointed government, which will allow me to start getting a meaningful amount of political power so I can get the proper advisors, change my laws, and blah, 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 blah. These are all things that I absolutely have to do, no exceptions. Let's go ahead and toss on the engineers now. No, we're going to want that. We will want to duplicate this template and get some artillery versions as well. I would love to have some really solid attacking artillery divisions. Hey, look! The Spanish Civil War has begun! Now, I don't want to go into too much detail about this because I want to save this for a future series. But basically, depending on which side you choose in your national focuses, that's going to depend on, that's going to choose which nation you play as when the Civil War breaks out. And you can spend a lot of time in the early game building up support in the individual states so that you take over those states at the beginning of the Civil War, but your opponents will be doing the same. So the first, year of the game, not even that, the first few months, is a tug-of-war as to who can own the most states and where, because that's going to determine where your troops place out and is going to have a significant impact on your Civil War. Pretty interesting stuff, but we're not going to worry about that too much more right now. Let's go for the revising of the Constitution, start building up that weekly stability by, I think it's 0.2% every week. By the way, our war support is just garbage. If we declare a war right now, then, like, we just lose all of it. I mean, like, literally all of it. I don't know, though. The militarization of the Rhineland, I think that counts as them attacking you? Question mark? You lose the stability for being at war, but I don't think you lose all your war support. Even so, ideally, we're going to build this back up so that I actually can, you know, have a meaningful army. So how long am I going to have only one division, you might ask? Well, long enough to get enough army experience to get the templates that I think I'm going to want. And that's going to include going ahead and tossing on some recon and then putting in some artillery and stuff. So we have a defensive and an offensive army. And I really wouldn't mind also adding in some more cavalry here so it can be at least 10 combat with. That way we actually have a more effective garrison. Cavalry are still better for suppression than just leg infantry. But not by a lot, admittedly. Not by a whole lot. How are we doing on construction? We're building up these factories. We're actually doing okay here. We're now looking at 39 in total, but a lot of those are going to our mobilization law. Is Italy at war with Ethiopia? No, they already finished off Ethiopia. That's a shame. Sometimes, when Italy does their war with Ethiopia, if you have a civilian economy, then you get a little pop-up saying, your people are restless and afraid of the war on our borders, which technically is the case right down here. So you just get early mobilization law for free, which is awesome, but we did not get lucky this time around. That's okay. That's okay. I wasn't expecting it. It just would have been nice. All right. So revising the Constitution is almost done. Then we have to wait for 365 days before we are going to get to move on to put Bonaparte on the throne. Although, I don't know, do we want to do that immediately once we have the option? I mean, we can't exactly go to war right away until I start building more stuff up. It is October. I'm going to go ahead and continue with things like concentrated industry and improved machine tools. Just try to build up that industrial base as quick as we can. So yeah, no option here to go for the repeal of the law of exile. So now we have a couple options. We could go for something like agricultural protectionism, which does give me additional civilian factory construction speed, which is pretty nice. I could ban communism as well, which gets rid of political violence, or I could just take the risk. We could also intervene in Spain if we want to, but that's going to cost me too much manpower and equipment. It's just not worth it. Instead, I'm going to go ahead and devalue the franc, which for 1 year is going to reduce my consumer goods and also reduce my stability. But that's fine. We're building up more stability because I have the constitutional revision going on right now. Also, I would like to go ahead and get the, rolling on the investments, because I know that I can get a lot of civilian factories that way, and I'd really like to get that before the war breaks out. Lots of civilian factories means that I can build a lot of forts as France, right? We have the Maginot Line, but I'd love to build some up here in Savoy. That could be pretty good. I'd also like to potentially build some along the border of Belgium. Or, better yet, if we go down here, can actually take a look at the future with the Bonaparte path, we will get to avenge Waterloo, which gives me an annex war goal against Belgium, the Netherlands, and the United Kingdom. We could just conquer Belgium and the Netherlands, and then build a bunch of forts on the border of Germany that way, and try desperately to hold them off. Or maybe to build just a few forts so that they keep throwing themselves against them and hopefully take massive casualties. That sounds good in theory, except I'm pretty confident it's not going to work because once the Germans get medium tanks, they'll just steamroll you even though you do have forts. So I'm a little concerned about that, to be honest, but we'll figure it out. We'll make it work. My real question is, will we find a way to attack and defeat the United Kingdom before World War II breaks out? Or do we need to wait until World War II breaks out, the United Kingdom defends Poland, but I don't get involved, and then I attack the United Kingdom, and then the Germans say, hey, we're allies against the UK, would you like to join the Axis? That could be an option. I've had that happen in one of my test games. I'm not sure if it's the right thing to do, but it is a thing to do. This is actually going to cost me a lot of support equipment. You know what? Maybe I don't want to do this right now. This is the thing, right? Engineers, they're good. I tend to underestimate just how much support equipment I'm going to need. We're going to try for it. Then we're going to go ahead and duplicate with these guys and go ahead and create my infantry divisions. I need a little bit more army experience, and then we can start rebuilding and reforming the French army. So for that to work, I'm going to need, I think, 15 more to get up to 20 combat width for a 7-2. That'd be fine. If I can get to 20, I can upgrade my cavalry, but that's not a huge priority. So 15 is the minimum. Then we're going to go ahead and start building up an army once again, use our army equipment, use our extra manpower, and start making something that's actually respectable. None of this garrison of, like, Africa nonsense. The templates are terrible down there, I hear. All right, so we have the construction speed going on there, or sorry, the consumer goods. Now we can go for developing the metropole, which gives me stability, or I can go for auto routes, which gives me more infrastructure, which means I can build these factories even faster in a few places, which I think is actually a really good idea. So let's actually go ahead and build up a couple more here. Yeah, more infrastructure means I can build more effectively. This is great. If I can get to maybe 3 full lines of civilian factories, I'm going to be feeling really good. But that might take a little bit too long. So this might be all the civilian factories that I'm going to be building at the very beginning of the game, and then we will rely on our investments to take me the rest of the way with industrial expansion, then we go down for extra research slots, etc. We could also begin rearmament, which would get me 4 more military factories, and that's huge considering I start the game with only 8. That said, we need 12% war support. Actually, more than that, because let's say the Spanish Civil War triggers up to 12 and then 13, but then something ends and it goes back down to 11 and this gets canceled and then you cry. So maybe when I have a bit more war support, we go for rearmament, then the defensive focus, and try going down to army reform and get rid of the victors of the Great War. Those are all things that I would like to do. Are we going to get to do any of those things? I don't know yet, but we are sure as heck going to try. Alright, so we're kind of out of time for this video already. Fortunately, Paradox is sponsoring a series on this of at least 3 videos, so I will be able to show you more. I know we haven't touched the intelligence agency. Don't worry, we will get to this, and I will start doing some spying against the Germans or maybe the British. I don't know, depends on who I want to kill. But you'll have to stay tuned for that now, won't you? Thank you all very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If so, then I would ask you to hit that like button, leave a comment, subscribe, hit the notify bell, and I will see you guys next time. All right, let's go ahead and do it.